but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back once again to the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel tonight, ahead of round 8 of our GT3 Season 7 Championship. Tonight you join us here for Split B, where we host the Premier and the Evo classes, and of course, as always, you can find the wonderful Chaz Draycott and Ed May over on the Chaz Draycott Media YouTube channel, live actually, as we speak, as they take ownership of our Elite and our Pro classes over in Split A. So, the championship returns to European soil for the first time in what feels like an awfully long time here in Imola tonight, ahead of this 1 hour feature race, where those qualifying laps become ever so more important than they usually are. My name is Joseph Glass, and as always, alongside me in the commentary box tonight is Mr. Dara Thacker. And Dara, with some of these drivers, you know, offering up some pretty good racing on Monday night, I'm sure we're pretty much nailed on for more of the same during the session this evening.
Yeah, hopefully so. Imola, not the easy circuit to go racing, we do know that, but if you can get it right down at the opening chicane, maybe at the Villeneuve chicane, maybe at Tosa Piratella, that move can happen. And with the amount of racing that we're likely to see tonight, I think it's going to be key for the drivers to be on it right from the word go. And at this stage of the season, when you've got, well, points are going to be the premium, you've got to make those moves count when you've got the opportunity to.
Yeah, and of course, without that reverse grid feature, we'll take a look at the standings very shortly, as always, heating up in the Evo class. And when we don't have that opportunity for some of those guys to try and get themselves toward the front of the grid in the second race, it's going to be really important for those guys to try and nail qualifying, start well in the opening lap, and see if they can bed into that session.
Yeah, I think for a lot of the drivers, it's just going to be a case of getting the rhythm in, particularly at the start of the race. Of course, it's going to be a bit of a long one for the drivers, and they'll know that. And getting, like I said, getting the points on the board is going to be absolutely crucial, and that cannot be overstated enough. Because at this stage of the season, if you start to fall a little bit behind, 2 weeks is really not enough time, even if we do have 4 races in those 2 weeks, to really garner those points back.
Absolutely. Well, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes until we get underway for qualifying. So in that meantime, we will take a look, as always, at how things stack up across both of our classes. First, though, a quick mention, as always, to Kame, to the GP2 group, and to Keen and Eco Energy for their continued support of this series. And me and Dara were just saying before we went live how quick this season has unfolded. Already into round 8, 2 weeks left after tonight. Mugello in mixed conditions, Bathurst for the season finale, of course, unable to drop that round, so we might see a pretty feisty evening around that circuit. But it's been one hell of a season so far, and it's really starting to get toward crunch time for those guys fighting toward the front of their championships. Speaking of which, here are the leaders at the front of the Premier class. First up, the leader in Mr. Robin Noel Brown, who really is starting to get very clear at the moment of the drivers in behind him. 146 points clear, the only driver inside 500 points, the only driver inside 400 points as well, and actually found out before the session, the only driver in his class to have dropped any points so far this season. So he's got 45 points to fall back on if he needs them, but it doesn't look like he's going to need them because of that 146 point margin. Down to Eddie Adcock, the leading NSX Acura driver. He had a DNF last time out. I'm sure he'll be hoping for more tonight in, again, as we said, a longer race where you can take your time and try and bed in. Jan Osberg is there or thereabouts, just about staying within touching distance of the top 3, but he has to watch out for the next 4 drivers, Howarth, Kostrick, Fraser and Bostock, who are all well within the reach, with the amount of points that we have left available, of getting themselves into the top 3 and claiming that last trophy that we have on offer. Slightly bigger gap down just outside the top 8. Justin Habermacher and Dean Sheesby battling for that position. Maxim Dimitrov close in behind. Then it's James Robinson. He'll fancy getting himself inside the top 10. Those guys there in P10 and P11 yet to get on the podium, the highest drivers without that so far this season. And then it's Mr. John Ludbrook, who had a great start to the championship, but since then it hasn't really taken to light as he might have hoped.
And over in the Evo standings, it's going to be quite an interesting evening. I mean, as it is, going into this evening, we only have a 17-point gap, I believe, between Andy Schell and Bert Ten Cut, first through 4th in the championship. It's incredibly tight at this stage of the season. The only issue is, I do believe that Andy Schell will not be joining us this evening, so he is going to drop quite a ways back from the rest. Of course, he will be able to pick up points from a drop round, but he's going to be possibly out of contention. Danny Weir is going to be in the driving seat to try and take that championship lead off of him, and he will go from P2, but don't count out Ryan Abbott's either, only 2 points back, and Bert Ten Cut consistency has him in the top 4. It's going to be an incredibly tight championship to this season. Andre Muntian is in 5th, quite clearly in 5th, ahead of Sander Tabers, who won last week and has shot himself back up into the top 6. He's just ahead of James Palo, who's 2 podiums in the last 2 races, keep him in competitive form in P7. Wesley Van Ren and Robert Savage in 8th and 9th, the Ferrari and the Porsche still over that 300-point threshold. Jan Noj rounds out the top 10. I mean, still, best result was the opening race of the season with that win, and he hasn't quite been able to replicate that form. Consistency, though, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th in the last few weeks has kept him inside the top 10. With Gareth Newton and Lewis Plath rounding out our top 12, we'll see if those two can get any much further towards the top 10 tonight.
Important to remember in this class as well that Andy is yet to miss a round, and so he will recuperate those 36 points dropped. So that will help slightly with that buffer to the 4 or 5 drivers in behind him, but missing a whole night's racing will not go down too well. However, we obviously wish him some good recovery. He's suffering, bless him, with the man flu. I mean, could it get much worse? So hopefully he's feeling better before we arrive at Mugello next week. Quick rundown of the Teams Championship, which is of course heating up as it always does, especially when you have competitors across both classes, sometimes picking up the same amount of points. Quartermass of Mr. Andy Schell still lead the way. They've got a pretty healthy margin, but it's not said and done yet. It's the Quartermass boys of Trunley, Chell, Savage and Blackie leading the RLH Pantera team, with Fletrell, Palo Van Ren and Thiago Reiser, who will definitely fancy their chances. Yet to see how many of those guys are with us across those 2 splits. Over in A split, the top team consisting of only A split drivers, Yannis Aubert, Tristan Drobriger and Luke Lucchese, still inside 900 points ahead of the Axis Sim Sports team. Thomas Pugh doing well inside the top 5, with Chris Jennings leading the way in his pro class up in the A split. Austin Grave and Andre Muntian with us here in split B, and then rounding up the top 5, it is the Suma GP2 Porsche team, the championship leader Robin Noel Brown alongside his teammate Scott Kostrick. It's STL Sim Team Racing Lowlands, I think, for RJ Bakker, Mark Van Mulken, Sander Tabers and Bert Tinkat. Bert, of course, fighting inside that top 4 in the Evo class. Could theoretically lead the championship if things were to go his way this evening. It's DXT Solar next, with Hoyland, Brandy, Donnelly and Kenyon ahead of the Solar team of Mackay, Howarth, Seward and Danny Weir. The 2-man army of Conehead Racing will round out the top 10 ahead of Lawrence van der Water, Branko Kapovic, Lawrence Sedapa and Alexander Dreby. I believe I'm pronouncing that right, but there was a little bit of contention around that one over an A split this time last week, so correct me if I'm wrong. And then of course we have another handful of teams. We actually, can you believe it, we have 37 teams in the championship. P37, however, sits on minus 23 points, so don't think we should really include those.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few teams that, not had the best of seasons, and impressive really to find yourself in the negative points column at this stage of the season. But hey, everyone's got their own championship to deal with, I guess.
Absolutely. So, we are just coming toward the end, thankfully, of this session. And I'm not going to flash up the practice order. I'm going to let qualifying speak for itself, and we can see who nails it at the front of the timing sheets. The clock has just struck 0, so we'll soon see those drivers disappear. There they are. They've all gone, and now they're going to be reset back to the pit lane ahead of 4 laps of 15 minutes worth of qualifying to set the grid for this 1-hour feature event.
Yeah, getting a good qualifying, if I can get my words out, getting a qualifying here is going to be crucial. With that 1 hour, of course, there is no chance to work your way through the field and the grid resets for race number 2. It's all or nothing, really, in this qualifying session. Where you start is where you will have to drive from throughout the rest of the evening, and it's going to be tricky, there's no doubt about that. But, you know, to get a lap in here early on is going to be so crucial and give you so much confidence towards the end of the session, which I think is going to be one of the most important parts about tonight's race.
Yeah, I've just seen in the comments there, Andy Chell saying it's not man flu. That was just Chinese whispers going on in chat. He's actually done his ankle. So, killer if that's his break, if that's his left ankle. Absolute killer. You could maybe get away with just mapping a button on the throttle and whacking the traction control up. But yeah, if that's your left ankle, then there's absolutely no way that you can use that on the brake pedal. So, speed recovery, of course, Andy, but you'll have to watch on in pain, both physically and literally and metaphorically, at some of your championship rivals, including this man, Burton Cat, making his way around the circuit now, down through Aqua Minerale to set off on his first lap of the session.
Yeah, let's see what Tenkat can do. It's going to be interesting to see what he could do off the start, of course, in that Evo class. Looking to try and make use of Andy's injury tonight to get himself at least into the top 3 in the championship, if not maybe even towards the top of the tree. So it's going to be an interesting start to qualifying here, and one of the first lap times we will see, of course, in this qualifying session. And the pressure is going to be on somewhat, but he'll have more than enough time to try and rectify it if he makes any kind of mistake.
Yeah, the guys, I'm sure, will have noticed who is there and who is not, of course, in the practice session. So I noticed, I think some of the Kame cars were doing quite well toward the end of the practice session. Not sure, as we said, who finished that session on top. But let's ride on board with Burton Cat as he makes his way around the little kink through what is actually turn 1 before slamming on the brakes through the Variante Tamburello 2, 3, 4. Pretty tricky left-right complex. Hasn't quite nailed the first apex there. Just bringing the car up to temperature. Gets it through the left-hander of 4. Brings it over to the right-hand side for the Variante Villeneuve. 5 and 6 this time. One less corner to deal with, but just as treacherous as that first chicane. Using all the curb and all the available track on the left-hand side before the uphill braking into toe. Certainly a 90-degree hairpin here. Very tricky to lose the back end on the exit, especially if you get forced to that inside line during the race. Probably the longest run before the next braking zone through turn 8, the kink, and now 9 at Piratella. Downhill now, a very tricky part of the circuit into Aqua Minerale. So easy to again spin the rear under braking through not only this section, but this section as the car's weight returns to you on the uphill. Want to get it out back to the left-hand side on the power, and now through the penultimate set of corners, turns 14 and 15 to the Variante Alta. Get it over both of these apex curves, right and then left. I don't think Bert is really sending it too aggressively. You'll know that he's still got 3 more laps after this one to set his fastest lap time, but at the moment it's going to be a pretty good banker lap. Hasn't made any mistakes so far, getting it nice and slowed down, not scraping too much of the tyres. He's going to net round Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2 through turn 19, the kink, and he's going to hit the line, I believe, first. Let's see what he sets. The others have to beat it.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting time from Bertrand Kart. He crosses the line. Where is it going to put himself? 45.299 is where he can go in his Audi. That'll be replaced by Adam Baker at 7 seconds. Make that nearly 3 seconds from John Lubbock, faster than 10 Kart on that opening lap. That is what you would expect from a class divider. Jan Noj, though, goes up into P2. Would be P2 overall with that kind of lap time. Fantastic to see him up near the front, and really impressive lap time to see him 2.5 seconds clear of his rival Van Ren. Splits the difference though in the Evo class. I think this is going to be quite a higgledy-piggledy session. The laps may not come too early on, but when they do arrive, they may be pretty speedy. Now, Brown could be one that we have to keep an eye on, but his first lap time didn't look like it was exactly where he wanted to be.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys will have been looking forward to this one. As we said, it's been a long time coming since we've come back to a European circuit. I can't think of the last time we did 5 circuits outside of Europe. Of course, my bias would suggest that a lot of these guys like it that way, and we've definitely raced here more often than not over the last 7 seasons, depending on whether you want to count the TCR, the GT4 championships and things like that. So a circuit which a lot of drivers are very familiar with. Nonetheless, this man, Hussein Sarakadesla, going pretty well in both championships during his season so far, and he's been with us right since the start. Not a man who's afraid to send it over the curbs, and he'll definitely want to improve on his lap. Unable to set one in his first, must have ran wide at some point. I believe they've changed the track limits around here as well. That was the discussion earlier on in the week, to sort of free up how far you can push the car, which I guess, Dara, will probably benefit the racing, both in qualifying and during the race.
Yeah, definitely so. I think a lot of the drivers will be able to feel like they can push the track limit just that little bit more and find a little bit more time in the car. Robin Aston's finding a little bit more time in the car. Really impressive to see him get to a 41.8 at the top of the standings. Jan Nodge going even quicker, 42.5 for him as well. That's a really solid lap time from the number 65 driver. Good enough, really, to go into P6 overall in this race. And with 27 drivers setting a lap time for an Evo driver, that's a fantastic lap time.
Danny Weir crosses the line. His first lap was not a valid one. Pressure on, 3 to go. One of the men fighting in that championship, of course, at the moment, actually. It's not the guys who we thought might have led the way, who were toward the front of their class. No Chell, no Abbott. Andrea Muntian in P5 is the highest on the grid and the highest in the championship. And I want to flash up Gareth Newton, who is one of the few drivers, I believe, so far this season, I think we've only had one, who's changed his car for the final 3 rounds of the season. So I believe Gareth will have taken that 50-point championship point loss in order to swap from the NSX over to the Porsche. And so now it's just the Suma GP2 team, and there's no specific NSX prefix on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. It's slightly changed around towards the end of the season. Never far away from the change here in ESR. But Newton going along relatively well, it seems, on this lap in his newly named machine. Let's see what he can do in terms of getting himself in the timing tower. Still lap times being set by drivers who haven't hit a lap time yet as we pass over the halfway point in the session. So leaving it a little bit later than they probably want to, but getting a lap time in all the same is important and means that they can still maybe find themselves onto a part of the grid where they can feel competitive. Let's see what Newton does around the final couple of corners. Danny Weir was improving, but I don't think he's improving anymore. Will set his first lap time. It's only good enough for P6, but where is Gareth Newton going to go? The 24 is going to be his first lap time as well.
Yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on that. James Bostock set a lap time good enough for P18. Sarah Cadesta crossed the line and went into the top 15. He's coming around the corner once, the final corner. Once again, is he improving? I'm not sure. We didn't see him on the little mini graphic there. Sarah Cadesta up to P7. Great improvement for him, though. Still 1.1 seconds away from the man on the front row of the grid. Sander Tabbers gets himself up 2 tenths away from Jan Nage at the front of the Evo class. That's good enough for P14. 7th row of the grid at the moment. And it's interesting, Dara, to see, albeit the Evo class, the smallest division that we have in this championship, of course, there's only 11 drivers in that class, all of which who have set a qualifying lap, but we have 30 in attendance tonight in the Premier class, which means potentially 10 drivers could reach the checkered flag and not take home any points.
Yeah, it really is. Well, not great for some of the drivers, that's for sure. They won't be pleased about not picking up many points in this race, but It means that there is a competitive nature. It means that there is a lot to fight for, particularly towards that reverse. What am I talking about? Particularly towards that midfield area of the field where we would see a reverse grid. I think a lot of the drivers are going to be fighting it out pretty hard in that kind of area of the order. Points are crucial, as we've mentioned, at this stage of the season as well. So, yeah, really important to get your lap time here now, which will make it a little bit easier for you later on in the race.
Yeah, final lap times flying in for 3/4 of these drivers. Mr. Rob Mackay across the line did enough for P23 in class, P30 in the order. Alex Coenraads making his way up and out of Aqua Minerale in that Ford. He is setting a good sector in the final sector on his last lap, but I'm not sure if he's improving all that much at the moment. Robert Savage for the team's championship leaders. He crosses the line, sets, was it an improved lap time? Maybe not. It looked as though he was lighting up the sector times, but in the end, I don't think he actually improved there as he crossed over the line.
No, neither do I. Yeah, it's not really ideal for him to not be improving at this stage of the session. Of course, not many drivers have many laps left at their disposal. Coenraads won't be improving either. Well, he improved, but to P26, not a big improvement. That's for sure. What about Anthony Flamal in his Porsche? The 147 wouldn't mind an extra few tenths to get him towards the back end of the top 15, but where can Flamal go? It's absolutely nowhere. We'll stay P20, and it's not looking great for him, but Tenkat won't be improving up the order either. We'll stay in 10th. We aren't really seeing many improvements now with only 4 minutes left.
No, only Roald Turfkruer and Simon Wareham, two drivers in the Premier class who are yet to who won't set a lap time at the moment out on track. Danny Weir, this is an interesting one. He's currently 6th, 1 second behind Jan Naj. His championship is is there for the taking. Is he going to improve? He crosses the line. That's going to be it for Danny Weir. It is a slight improvement, 2/10 of an improvement. In fact, get himself in the top 5. Not the worst starting position, but that is P24 on the road, and he's got three Premier cars in between him and Daniel Poole, separated by another 2 into the top 3, and then it's a pretty big gap to the leaders. Jan Naj, Sander Tabber starting side by side on the circuit. That could bode well, actually, for some of these Evo drivers down the order, with these guys battling it off in the opening lap. Let's see how that plays out then. 3 minutes to go. It is going to be Alex Coenraads, Jarmo van der Meer, the final 2 drivers on the track. Jarmo trying to get inside the top 5 in the order. Alex trying to get inside the top 25 in the order.
Yeah, very differing aspirations for them at this stage. Where can Coenraads go? Can he improve? It doesn't look like it's a fantastic lap time, and he will stay in P20. Well, he improves to P22, but it's still not a good enough improvement, I think, for him. Jarmo van der Meer can't improve to the top 5 either, as he may have now finished the session or is coming to the end of it. Brandon Smith is out there again. We'll see what he can do from P18, maybe get inside the top 15. We'll have to wait and see, but we really are now down to the last dregs of drivers trying to set some lap times.
I must say, I remember picking up this livery right earlier in round 1. I was like, is that a lightsaber? Yes, it was a lightsaber, and I must say, I think it's my season favourite so far, but not when it does that. He's kept it in the right way, though, which is good to see. Sadly, though, this is just a sighter lap for Brandon. He's finished his qualifying runs, and this will conclude his 5th lap, which is one too many when it comes to qualifying. So he will stay where he is, and it looks as though the order is set. And Robin Noah Brown, could it be a Sebring repeat? Could it be the last month's worth of repeats, perhaps? 6/10 better qualifying pace. The 2 Robins leading the way, but something tells me with such a big margin, if Noah Brown can get away cleanly at the start, it could be a Sebring repeat.
Yeah, let's wait and see, but I wouldn't be too... I don't think we could be too far off that this evening. Van der Meer's coming into the pit lane. Sorry, that's Brandon Smith coming into the pit lane. Van der Meer still out on the racetrack, but it doesn't look like he's going any faster. And it doesn't really feel like that should be that. And there we go. He stops on the circuit and gets back to pit lane. So I think, Joe, that pretty much wraps us up, doesn't it?
That does wrap us up. We've got just about 1 minute to go before we start to form up for the first session. And so far, so good. I think we've seen a lot of drivers there qualifying. Of course, we've got 2/3 of the championship with us tonight, and only 2 of them failed to qualify. So I think most of those guys will be pretty impressed by their performance. Key standouts, I'd say Andrew Muntian, actually just outside of that sort of top 15 area with Jan Nage and Sander Tabbers in P11 and P12 on the circuit. And I think Danny Weir, I think sadly for Danny, he would have probably liked to have been a little bit higher up the order, of course. Anything can happen over 1 hour, but he's best part of 13 cars away from his class leader.
Yeah, a long way away, and it's not really where he would want to be at all. And with the mix of the pros and the AMs, with the premiers and the Evo drivers, I should say, it does really, it can give the Evo something to think about, and really cause them quite a lot of trouble, because they have to be fighting through pros who are having their own battles in their own championship, just to get up towards their rival, who can just really sit there, manage the pace, and kind of keep himself where he is. Difficult to really judge it from an Evo's point of view when you're right in the mid-pack and your fellow drivers are kind of a little bit further up the order, but you're going to have to find a way to make moves at Imola, and that's not exactly something you'd want to be doing, albeit you've got an hour to try.
Absolutely right. So let's take a quick look and a quick rundown at how we line up for the only race of the night. So we start at the front row of the grid. It's Mr. Robin Noel Brown with a time of a 1:41.275. He will share the front row with the other Aston in the other GP2 Porsche team. Suma and Kame, 6/10 the difference between the 121 and the 125. Quite a lot of similarities between those two. It's actually, just looking there, it's a great roundup for the GP2 cohort, with Sarah Kadesla and John Ludbrook setting the grid inside the front two rows. Then it's Matthias Eggert inside the top five, with Hjalmar van der Meer on row 3. Austin Grave, Liam Fraser, Bruno Silva and Dean Sheesby getting himself inside the top 10, 1.2 seconds separating first to 10th during qualifying. Then we come to the pole man in the Evo class. That's Jan Nage, and he will start side by side with Sander Tabbers. Keep your eyes out for those two at the start of this race. Clyde Veyer and James Howarth will start ahead of Scott Krostrick and Klaas Janssen on row 8, ahead of Andre Muntian and Rob Gregg. Then it's Mark Van Moken ahead of Daniel Poole, who round out the top 20. We come through next to Jan Osberg and Brandon Smith on row 11. James Bostock starts alongside Danny Weir ahead of Anthony Flamel and Evan Main inside the top 26. Gareth Newton, the Suma GP2 driver, newly in that Porsche. Let's see how he gets on in the opening phase of the race. He'll be next to Alex Kornratz ahead of James Pallow, Adam Baker, Wesley Van Ren and Rob Mackay, the top 32. It'll be Pete Paeva and Ryan Blackie, who start ahead of Martin Koch and Henry Coulin inside the top 36. And then be Robert Savage, Burton Catt, Lewis Plath and Simon Wareham, the top 40, with just one more driver there, Roald Turfkruer, who hasn't been on the circuit too much this season, starting toward the back, right at the back, shall I say, of this 41 car grid, Dara.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a busy evening worth of racing here at Imola. 41 cars. It's going to be a lot down in towards the Tamburello chicane. If you can work your way around any kind of incident, you're going to be doing very well for yourself, because this is a circuit where it is easy to come together through turns 1 to 4. We will have to see how it unfolds. Noel Brown was really effective in how he was able to lead the race on Monday night. Let's see if he can do it again on the Thursday night. You'd be hard-pressed to bet too much against him. But it's all about controlling that line into turn 1. He's going to have the inside line. He's going to make sure he's going to cover off any kind of move around the outside, because those two Suma cars are going to be right around him. Or, sorry, two Cam-Aikens, I should say.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, mate, it's easy to get confused. The GP2 doing so well at the moment. I was going to say, I'm sure we'll soon be seeing some pictures floating around the server with these four starting at the front of the field. Something we haven't seen so far this season. Robin Noel Brown will slow down just a little bit, allow the grid to bunch up, and we'll be underway for 60 minutes of racing here at Imola. It's quite a long run down toward the start line. Of course, there is a finish line and there is a start line. It's up to Noel Brown to gun it before that start line. It's over to the 121. Pretty competitive inside the top 10, all consisting of those pro drivers Here we go then. Noel Brown will drop the hammer and he's gone. We've got an hour to go until we conclude for round 8 of the GT3 Season 7 Championship. What a start that is from Noel Brown. Already a couple of car lengths clear of anybody in the rest of the field. Everyone's seemingly getting through turns 2, 3 and 4. Okay so far. Heading toward the back, a little bit of a bunch up, but no collisions to report so far, Dara, off the back of the field. Noel Brown needs Aston Sarika Desler, Jarmo van der Meer up a couple of places. It's Poole and Matthias Eggert. He's round and down the back of the order.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting end to the starting lap, because we've not really seen too much in the way of summer selection or frantic group action. So for the likes of Ryan Blackie, disappointing to be going backwards right now, but generally everybody making their way through the opening few corners, and very nice to see really that everybody's being nice and come off the start. They know that they've got an hour to race here. They're not going to be winning the race at turn number 1, and they know that, and they're going to be waiting to make the move. Having said that, Adam Baker is fighting down the hill towards Akram Minerali. This with Ryan Blackie, who has the inside line, and the Porsche just about pulls ahead as they make their way in towards turn number 9 and 10.
Yeah, let's see if everybody gets through here cleanly. It's a pretty tricky corner to get right, actually, as you all barrel down the hill and into what is a pretty tricky braking zone, but they seem to have done it so far. Brandon Smith and Evan Main haven't though, and that's going to cause one hell of a bunch up. There's a lot of damage there, lots and lots of cars involved. Gareth Newton, I think, managed to stay out of that. Crucially, one of those drivers is Burton Cat, who's down the order, so that's not good for his championship challenge at the start. It's Rob Gregg who's dropped the most positions out of anybody at the moment. He's down 22. Austin Grave under pressure by Liam Fraser through down the run into turn 2.
Yeah, still they go through the opening few corners though. I mean, Robin O'Brien will be delighted about the lead that he's been able to build up, but he's just not being challenged right now. Sarika Desler may have a look at Aston in the coming laps. For the time being, it seems like they will stay as they are. Not too much to really report off the start. It's surprising really to see that there hasn't been a whole lot to occur. The only thing that could be said is that between Alex Koenraats in 17th in the Premier class and Anthony Flamal in 20th, there's a 10-second gap. So there's quite a large gap there with a couple of Evos in the middle. But apart from that, it's nice and tight towards most of the... Well, I was going to say towards the front of the field, but really most of the way through the field.
Yeah, doing so well at the moment. No huge gaps, as you said. There is a small one just inside that midfield, but at the moment, they're going pretty much 2 by 2 through... Or sorry, say 1 by 1, in groups of 2 through a lot of these corners. Noel Brown is getting away ever so slightly toward the front of the pack because Sarika Desler putting pressure on Robin Aston at the start. The top 4 remain how they were when they crossed the line to start this race. So far, so good for the front 4 leaders. We see this is John Ludbrook, who's doing well, the 114 at the front. He's got Jarmo van der Meer putting pressure on him at the moment, although here's Noel Brown, and you can already see, Dara, the gap appearing. We kind of half expected it, really. 6.2 tenths clear. Is that a way to say that? Yeah, 6 tenths clear of anybody in qualifying, and it's already starting to prove true in this opening stage.
Yeah, it's still very early stages here, only the first couple of minutes, but clearly everybody's settling into a rhythm at this stage already. No one really forcing the issue too much early on. Then there's a long way to go. We see Matthias Eggert trying to make a move past one of the Evo drivers. And at the moment, it's okay. It's managed. There's nothing really frantic ongoing, and I mean, in a way, hopefully it can stay that way because some drivers won't get involved in big battles, but at the same time, wouldn't mind seeing a couple of moves or two.
Yeah, there has been a swap for position at the front of the Evo class. We'll try and cut back to that one in a moment when we get the opportunity, but Sander Tabbers does now lead Jan Nage at the front of their field, inside the top 10 for the Dutchman at the moment, so it's going pretty well for STL. We do have some support for them in the chat, so fingers crossed that holds out for the time being. Only 5 minutes in though, still such a long way to go. And Danny Weir, where's he? He's got himself up 5 places at the start, so a brilliant effort by the championship challenger in that Evo class off the line. He's actually now only 3 cars away from being on the podium in class, so let's keep our eyes on him if he can make his way up the order. He's putting pressure on Jan Osberg, of all people, and also has Alex Kronratz for company right in behind.
Yeah, and Konrads wouldn't mind making a move just about now. He's right on the tail, as is James Bostock on the back of Andre Muntian, actually, as they run towards turn 1. Here's Zarek Adesta trying to make a move on Robin Aston. No move happening there, but James Bostock's in a similar position on the back of Muntian as they cross the line. I think there's going to be a swap of positions. There is for P15 overall, and James Bostock will get the move done on the number 7 in that Evo class. And they will continue onwards. James Bostock now maybe trying to get after Klaas Janssen for P14, but clearly effective move being done, and he is moving his way through the order.
I'm trying to find that replay of the position for the two Evo leaders. We'll come back to it when I get a chance, but at the moment we will ride on with this action. And yeah, Dara, so some of these guys obviously familiar from Monday evening. How much do you think that really applies? I mean, if you're in the GT4 class, it's not so far away in terms of, you know, the car's capability. But for those guys in the TCR, is that really transferable on a circuit like this as well, with so much undulation, so many tricky corners, all those chicanes, handling the weight transfer? I think it's pretty different, isn't it, to try and go from a TCR car into one of these things. So much more downforce, so much more capability on the brakes. Maybe GT4, slightly more alike, of course.
Yeah, it is very much different, but at the same time, I think knowing how to race around this circuit, you can learn it in any machinery, really. And the experience from Monday night, I think, really will have helped tonight, because you kind of know where you can try and get better drives around the circuit. You can see where the lines differ, and even if you're going slightly faster in a GT3, the differing lines will still garner the same kind of results, because in a different time frame, really. And Jelmer van der Meyer might be looking for a different race line through the opening Tamboro chicane, put your driver off, have it going to Villeneuve. Maybe he's going to send it to the inside. Going to do neither of those things. Going to take the racing line right behind John Ludbrich, who is unfazed by the Mustang driver's line. But let's see, does he get a good enough run out to have a go at Villeneuve? Maybe, actually, to the inside.
Such a risky place to try and stick your nose up the inside, but he has done it. And he has just got it through. Lovely move there. Up the inside, then round the outside. Running wide ever so slightly, though. That is going to give the run back to the Kame car. Well covered off, though, by Jelmer van der Meyer, who's immediately put Ludbrich under pressure from the cars behind. That's exactly what you want to do in a race car. Get the move done, and also feed your opponent to the prey in behind. And sorry, the predator, should I say. And they are coming through. I have found the replay from earlier. So this is how the lead was taken right at the start. Heading through this chicane. Is that around the outside for Sander? Yes, it is. Avoiding a collision, I think. A car going off and then heading through down toward the second chicane in Sector 1. Getting past Jan quite easily, actually, there. Let's watch that one more time from the chopper cam and just see. Pretty slow pace, I think, toward the back. Tricky inside the midfield section. Keeps it tight on the exit there to avoid the car off on yellow flags. And then nicely around the outside, getting it tucked in well before they turn in again. Pretty tidy move by the STL driver.
Yeah, nicely done by Sander. And I think, to be fair, Jan looked like he was just taking a bit of a cautious line through turn 3 to make sure that he didn't drift wide into the number 2. And he didn't, but he lost the position. So Jan losing out just a touch. But for Scott Kostrick, he is right in the fight. Maybe looking to get through on the Evo driver to get himself a little bit safer in P10 in class right now. But there where the battles are towards the front of the field at the moment. But it is good to see towards the front that battle around the top 10 keeping relatively stagnant. We've seen Clyde Veyer go past Danny Weir, and that was almost like he was standing still.
Yeah, I think Danny not fancying putting up too much of an effort at the moment. I was going to highlight this moment earlier on. Andre Muntian, who was leading, well, sorry, who was inside the top 3 in the Premier Class, had a moment heading down into Ravazza 1, loses it on entry there. I'm not sure, is that something to do with touching the grass there, or did he maybe just, did the rear come around on him? Crucial moment to drop the car as well. I think he's just carried a bit too much speed in there. Gone off the circuit at Ravazza 1, which has promoted Danny Weir, of course, into that top 3. We highlighted him because he was under pressure from that Premier driver, but now he'll be pleased to know that he's got a 6-second gap to Daniel Poole, and then a further 2-second gap to Andre Muntian inside the top 5. So all going well off the start so far for Danny Weir. Bad news though, he's got 8 cars from him into the top 2, so it's going to be one hell of a drive for Danny if he can get himself up into that order though. Of course, with the pit stops, we've seen that happen before. Some guys can shave 3, 4, 5 seconds off their race time with an optimal pit stop, which, hey, you never know. Could go in his favour, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, those fine margins in the pit stop phase is something that the drivers will not practice very often, realistically. But it's going to be so crucial in the race, and you can lose a second or two, and if you're in a close battle towards the front of the field, or even if you're just in a bit of a tight midfield region, if you lose a couple of seconds in the pit lane, whether that's the entry, the exit, the box itself, the in-lap, the out-lap, you know, you can really win or lose a race. You could sit in a train for 45 minutes of an hour race, then come into the pit lane right at the end of your stint, mess it up a little bit, and all of a sudden you've lost 5 places. It's really easy to do, and it's, again, not really something the drivers practice, but I think it is far more crucial to a race than some drivers give credit for.
Yeah, and of course, Danny's got that advantage, doesn't he? He's got Luigi in his pit box, so I'm sure he'll do a pretty quick job of getting Lightning McQueen back out onto the circuit. So that is a little bit of an advantage. Let's not play it down too much. Of course, we all know this, but yeah, Danny will have that one in the back of his mind to know that he does have just a little bit of advantage over everybody else on the circuit. Pressure on here. Liam Fraser, we lost him earlier on, but he certainly hasn't dropped off the back of his pursuit of the top 5. It's John Ludbrook, and actually Yarma did eventually get past. No, we did see that. He got past John Ludbrook just 1 or 2 laps ago, and yeah, Austin will be the next one to try and mount a challenge, but first he has to worry about Fraser, Shisby and Silva, top 9 drivers all in the pro class. It's good to see that we have a little bit of a break down to those in the Evo class to let these guys get on with things.
Yeah, and it means that there is a very intense battle all for position in class. It means that every single position or every single move made will have a difference to the championship, which is always what we want to be seeing. And for Tabbers and Nodge, they're kind of leading their own train as well, with Kostrek, with Janssen and Bostock tightly packed together right now. There's Liam Fraser, and the closeness he is to Austin Graff is kind of what we're seeing for Scott Kostrek on the back of Jan Nodge, and for Hayworth, and for Janssen, and for Bostock. They are all so tightly packed together. The closest train on the circuit at the moment, for P11 overall. But really, for P10 in that Premier class, the Scott Kostrek leads them by a touch. Just seen Brandon Smith's retired. That very well could have been a disconnect with the way he's just dropped down the tower.
Who was that there? Brandon Smith, yes. He is blinking in and out. He's back on my timing sheet now, although he's not moving around the circuit, so perhaps he has disconnected. Interesting point I was going to make there, Dara. From P3 down to P7, riding on board with Liam Fraser here, we have an NSX, a Ford, a Porsche, Ferrari, Mercedes, and another NSX. So great also, not only to see these guys doing battle at the front of the field, also great to see pretty much every manufacturer involved in this fight toward the front. Of course, it wouldn't be a GT3 championship if 2 Porsches weren't leading the way up the road, but good to see some good representation further down the order inside the top 10 as well.
Yeah, it's also nice to see that we are having a bit of a... I mean, the Acura is coming into prominence, I feel, with every single passing week. I broadcast another a GT3 championship, and it feels like genuinely with every passing week another couple of drivers give the Acura a go. Of course, slightly newer compared to the likes of the Porsche, the McLaren, that have been around in this particular build for a very long time. Jan Nodge goes deep. Scott Kostrek had come through. Klaus Janssen tried to make the move as well. James Hayworth tried to make the move. Klaus Janssen picking up the pieces because he wasn't quite able to do it, and suddenly the 180 is up into P13 with Hayworth, and now Bostock trying to make the move on the Mustang as they go behind ever so slightly. Here comes Bostock maybe to make it 2 in 1 corner.
Yeah, it looks as though the leading Evo driver of Jan Nage got a little bit caught up in with those Premier drivers trying to let them through, and in the end it was a little bit of contact, not too much though, but that upset Howell's run all the way down through turn 2, which is exactly the opposite of what you want to do, trying to get a good launch out of Ravazza down through the kink at 19 and of course turn 1, and in doing so he's allowed the BMW driver of Klaas Janssen and James Bostock through the order. And not only that, he's got Mark van Mulken, another one of the STL drivers, on his tail now as well, so a pretty disastrous braking zone into Ravazza 1 for the Mustang, but I'm sure that he can cope and recover for that. Jan Osberg, the next car in behind. Jan Nage has recovered, but now he's got Scott Kostrek separating him from Mr. Sander Tavers in that McLaren. So it's advantage Sander off the line and into the final 3/4 of this race. Let's continue to see how that unfolds. The battle toward the front between Grave, Fraser and Shrewsbury continues. But I think we're right on board with this one for a little while, because it's getting a little bit tasty, Dara.
Yeah, it is very much an involved battle down here. Lots of drivers that would like to get themselves a piece of the action, quite frankly. Bostock is one of them, behind Janssen and Naj. Hayworth and Van Molken a little bit off the back. Van Molken may even come into it as well, as they make their way through Ravazza 2 at the final corner. More than a quarter of the race gone. Maybe thinking about getting a move on just a touch. Is there a move on for Klaas Janssen? Maybe, but not down into turn 1 just yet. Liam Fraser, I think, also looked for a bit of a move on Austin Graff, but didn't. Well, it didn't come off either way. Into turn 1 we go. The Tamburello, difficult place to make a move with, almost a double kink to the left before we get to the corner. Jan goes deep, but not deep enough, I don't think, to give Klaas Janssen a chance. And not a great line through the opening corners means that the BMW driver, the leading BMW driver, won't get into the top 12 for the time being. But still a close battle. Hayworth very much still on the tail.
Yeah, it's really bodes very well for the rest of this race to see these guys so close after what is, well, on a normal night it would be halfway through that 30-minute race, and we don't normally see. I mean, look at the Premier standings, for example. There's only 3 or 4 drivers that aren't within half a second of each other at the moment. Speaking of which, we've got these 4 who are within half a second of each other. That was a little bit close by Howarth going in to the left-hander down and toward Aqua Minerale, but so far so good for these guys. Mark Van Molken, he can smell blood, I think, on the back of that Mustang. He's been there or thereabouts for quite some time. Jan Naj and Jan Osberg, interestingly, now sharing the circuit. It's been 5 places lost for Naj, 4 places gained for Osberg, and now they meet in the middle. So it'll be interesting if Osberg lays off Naj just to let him stay ahead, but also Osberg doesn't want to miss out on a handful of more points while these guys in class are scrapping up front, because we've seen how easy it is when you've got 3 or 4 cars doing battle ahead. You can really make up some time if you get a good launch.
Yeah, and a good launch can be oh so crucial and really make or break a move. It can keep you ahead, it could drop you behind, and even if you're the slower driver, if you can just get the good exits out of the key traction zones, it's going to give you a chance to stay ahead pretty much all race long. That's exactly what we're seeing from the likes of Hayworth at the moment. Van Molken looks like he's got a little bit more pace in that Ferrari, just not able to use it, and is going to have to sit behind and wait, and there's not really much he can do about it right now unless he gets a good exit out of somewhere like turn 3, maybe looking for it down at the Villeneuve chicane. Difficult place to make a move, and Hayworth's going to cover that off just nicely.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see these guys driving the different machines, of course, on the Monday series in the GT4 TCRs. Not only do we have a few less options, we also have, of course, the fixed setup. So if you're in the Porsche, you're driving the same car. We saw the 2 race leaders on Monday night doing exactly that, whereas this, with such a wide spread of machines, you could have all sorts of different setups between these drivers, of course, and that will benefit some under braking, it will benefit some in the corners. Some of them might have just gone for a little bit of straight line speed, although around here you definitely do need that downforce. The characteristics of this circuit, I think, make would I be right in suggesting that this is probably quite good for an undercut, with it being pretty tricky to overtake. If you find yourself stuck in some traffic, you might want to just box early, try and do the undercut on some of these guys. That has to be a factor in their minds, of course. Not yet. You need to let the fuel come down first before you can really make that optimal. But for some of these guys, perhaps like Mark Van Molken, if he thinks he's got the pace to move higher up the order, could be an option to try and get himself into some clean air. But I think we'll see that more so from some of the guys who've had an incident off the start and who've maybe dropped down the order somewhere out of pace at the moment.
Yeah, I think we're going to be waiting and watching, I think, quite a lot of the fields just to kind of gauge where we could see a move or two happen, and that just could be where we see one in the Evo class. P4 is up for grabs. Daniel Poole trying to hold on from Andre Muntian. It's a Porsche against an Acura. Muntian looking for an inside line and mounting that curb on the inside. He's going to find it. He's going to have a go on the inside, sending the car. It's very tight. He's going to go off the road, and if he doesn't, he's going to lose position anyway. There we go, around the outside. Poole with a much better racing line. And Muntian, he claimed the race, well, he claimed the apex at turn 1, but didn't have enough of a racing line to have any kind of hope of keeping the position. And all of a sudden, here comes Evan Main in the battle down the inside.
Yeah, 1 second you're into the top 4. The next second you've got another car in between you and the top 4. Gravel kicked up on the entry to that chicane, so that I'm not sure if that put off Muntian ever so slightly, but of course he did get the entry but didn't get the exit. We'll cut back to that one because that was a great piece of defensive driving by Daniel Poole, who we saw doing a pretty good job. I think he was inside the top 5 if my memory serves me correctly, battling against, oh, help me out here, Dara. On Monday night it was Daniel Poole and someone else. We saw them make contact at Ravazza. Don't remember who the other driver was, sadly.
Oh, I don't remember.
God, scratch the head, scratch the head.
I've had.
You're normally quite good at plucking things out, you know.
Oh, no? Yeah. Well, yeah. I'll be honest with you, after the week I've had, I'm struggling to remember what I ate last night, so... not too sure. But this is it again, Muntian down here. So you can see how tight he's making that line, and when you're going that tight into the corner, especially with no room between the edge of the track and the grass and the gravel, you're going to have to shave off more speed than you can really race with, and that's why Daniel Poole was able to just brake a little earlier, take a better line, and then retake the position. Yeah,
he really took the optimal line there, right out on the right-hand side of the track, and knew exactly what Andrea was going to do, and he served him up there and delivered it, and he got it. Oh no, Dean Sheesby. He was riding so well, and he's had an incident, Dara. Let's see, is it a bad one, or is it just a slight graze? Is that Austin Grafe ahead of him? Yes, he is. They were inside the top 8. Is it contact? Oh, it's so tricky. Oh, that's an interesting one. I'm not sure if he's locked the rears there, trying to avoid the Ferrari in front, or is it netcode, possibly, going at the back of the Ferrari. Very tricky. As we said in qualifying, it was wobbly there. Ah, yeah, he's just lost it. Too much speed into the corner. And sadly for Dean, that's cost him what was a good position at the time. Now he's inside the top 8. Still going well, of course, but he dropped 2 positions in class as a result of that one.
Yeah, much could have been worse, though. Lucky, really, to keep it under control in the manner that he did. Could have absolutely ended in far more tears than there were. But just a bit of a lazy spin as Rob McKay nearly does the same thing. Maybe trying to get too much power down.
Yes, not enough speed and too much power, I think. Yeah. Mr. McKay there. And he's lost the downforce, and then he's tried to scoop it up. He did scoop it up for the most part, but yeah, not the best session for Rob so far. 22 seconds off the back of any points. In fact, more so, wouldn't it be? It'll now be best part of 30 seconds off the back of any points, and there's been an issue, I believe, for Austin Grafe here. Let's see, cars passing him left, right and centre. Has he gone into the pit lane, or has he gone off the road? I think he might have actually just gone into the pit lane, so we'll leave that one. But that is Austin Grafe now down in P20. He's not in the pit lane. Has he disconnected potentially? Yeah, I think Austin has actually disconnected from the session, so that's very unfortunate after being so high in the class, nearly halfway through the race, and I think he's left the session.
It's not ideal at all. Yeah, that's just not going to help him in any way, shape or form. I presume it's a disconnection rather than an Alt F5 or something like that, but it's not ideal for Austin. He won't be happy, and if he's able to get back in, we'll see if he can, do anything from the rest of the race. But he'll be well outside of the points, and I don't think he's going to be likely to pick up any if he came back regardless. So, not ideal for Austin.
Yeah, I'm not sure what Alt F5 does, Dara, but I can tell you Alt F4 will close the game for you. So.
Oh, thank you, Alt F4.
That's all right.
I should have remembered that.
I did have to, I did have to.
The Daytona 24. I don't know if anybody remembers this, albeit it was only like a month ago. Ferrari, at one point in the middle of the night, the Ferrari driver, I'm going to add here, supposedly Alt F4'd as he was crashing, which is why I probably should remember that, but we got bombarded about that. I can't believe I got that wrong.
Well, I've just had a quick Google. Apparently Alt F5 does nothing, so if they did do that, they'd be all good. Alt F4, however... Well, exactly, and to think they're right next to each other on the keyboard, the catastrophe that one causes and nothing that the other one causes is quite ironic. Car in the pit lane, and that's Wesley Van Rijn, I believe, the first man in who's well, okay, not the first man in, but I think the first man in who wasn't forced in, Little bit of a fix-up there on the right side of that front wing for the RLH Pantera Ferrari. He'll be taking tyres and taking fuel, so we'll get an idea at the moment, we'll get an idea soon at what the rough pace is, rough time lost is when you come into the pit lane. Burton Cat under pressure from Simon Wareham. Great drive so far by the man who failed to qualify. Actually 17 positions gained in 12 positions in class up into P17. So scoring points from all the way outside the top 40, you remember, Dara. Great drive for the man newly in the Premier class. I think this might be the first time we've really seen him have a proper outing in this division.
Yeah, and he's looking nice and cosy up in the top 17 at the moment. Let's see if he can work. I mean, 17.9 seconds is a very long way. Of course, he's behind a couple of the Evo drivers, but to get any more points, it's going to be quite a long way to get there. But still a long way to go. Still more than half the race left to run. And with interesting challenges like the likes of Sarah Cadesta coming to the pit lane now, anything can really happen in the next 34 minutes or so, and I think a lot of the drivers will back themselves to get themselves a little bit further up the order, if only for just consistent pace rather than anything else.
Team drama here. Hussein has pushed his team, well, his sister team, around the order, and then Jarmo van der Meer has scooped him up for good measure there. Burton Cat, I believe, also got through in that order as well. On the brakes, Sarki Desler just underestimates, I think, how long his car is, and then sadly forgets that there's another car coming in behind him and thinks, oh, maybe I should wait for my teammate, failing to realise that, there's a car of Jarmo van der Meer steaming into the apex there. Just minor contact at the front of that car. But the good news for the Veraco esports driver is that now promotes him into P2 in the order. Robin O'Brown, 7.2 seconds clear, but he won't mind that at all. John Ludbrook is just about in there with company of Liam Fraser hanging on to the top 3, but Jarmo 6 seconds clear, so he's in pretty clean air at the moment. Yet to serve his pit stop as well, of course. Many of those drivers are. And last lap, about 7/10 off the pace of Noel Brown. So that is about in keeping with what we've seen so far this session. I think Jarmo, we're very satisfied with that. 4 positions gained off the start, up from P6 into the top 2. Halfway through the race, can't really complain about that one, can you?
Not really. There's definitely worse races that you could be having at this stage with still a long way to go. Liam Fraser wouldn't mind getting himself onto the podium though. And the 174 has been very quick of late, trying to duck and dive his way through left, right, going to the inside once again. Is this going to be the move for Liam Fraser? Not quite. And the Mercedes driver is going to have to sit behind and wait. John Ludbrook having to do some defensive driving, but effectively so for now as they run their way through turn 3. They've lost a little bit of time to the likes of Jarmo van der Meer. And that gap at 6 seconds, you could just about see him in the distance. And with Robin Brown almost equally far in front, looking like a long way back for them if they want to have any aspirations on the lead. But realistically, difficult for these guys to work their way much further up the order. Could be a battle for a podium position, though.
Yeah, just taking a quick look at how things stack up in the pit stops. It looks as though the Porsche is the quickest car in and out of the box at the moment. It was Gareth Newton who came in to serve a 19.2 second stationary stop. Just about 49 seconds in the pit lane. Sarka Desler, Pete Paeva and Gareth Newton himself actually. Sorry, that wasn't Gareth Newton. It was Jan Osberg who I've just been talking about there. Sarka Desler, Paeva and Newton in the pit lane themselves. So we are starting to get to that crossover point. We're going to start seeing things changing. And for the likes of these two drivers, of course, who are sharing the same piece of tarmac by about a 10th of a second, I wonder if one of them blinks first. It would obviously, I think, go into the favour of Liam Fraser to get himself through. James Bostock going side by side with Mr. Kostrick on the run down to Rarazza. Gets that one done nice and early, even before the kink. But yeah, I think for the guys who are right next door to one another, Fraser, Ludbrook speaking. There we go, Dara. He's done it. He's in the pit lane. He's going to try the undercut on Mr. Ludbrook. See if he can come out ahead when John takes the pit lane just a couple of laps from now.
Yeah, he's going to be given a chance, that's for sure, to try and get himself a little bit higher up the order. We're right on that 30-minute point now. This is really a pit stop halfway through the race. Yeah, interesting to see Decisions being taken by some of these drivers to come into the pit lane now. Of course, it really does split the race up into two, but if you can go a little bit longer, why wouldn't you? You won't get caught up into too much traffic, albeit with the more pitters that we see, more traffic that we'll find from lapped cars rather than cars on the same pace, but at the same time, they're obliged to get out of the way, unlike cars that you were racing for on-track position. So, yeah, lots of strategy battles still ongoing, but 30 minutes just gone. We've still got 29 and a little bit to go.
Yeah, trying to find what's gone on with Danny Weir, because he's now up into P2, of course. There was the issue, maybe it's pit stop related, actually. Let me just double check that before I say too much. Yeah, Sander Tabbers has been into the pit lane, so he's inherited one place from that. However, he has got himself past Daniel Poole and Andre Muntien. Muntien would have had that issue, so I believe at some point he must have got himself past Daniel Poole, but we've been watching and keeping a little keen eye on Danny after his remarkable drive through the field a couple of weeks ago, which we completely missed. It went completely unnoticed, and of course now, with him being right in with the hunt for that championship, crucial for us to keep our eyes on him, of course. A huge gap, sadly for him, down to Jan Nage, 11 seconds, but with 30 minutes to go, still lots of time for all of that to change, but so far, so good for Mr. Danny Weir, up from P5 into the top 2, and around the pit stops, obviously, he's gained 13 places overall, but that will soon change. Let's see where Sander Tabbers is. He's just crossing over the halfway point in the lap now. Is Danny going to box, or is he going for one more? He's going for one more.
Yeah, he's continuing out. He will take the lead, but no, he won't. Sorry, that was just the little plus meters there getting me, confusing me, but he will stay in P2 because Jan Nage hasn't pitted for the time being. Danny Weir, though, of course, points that I think he'd love to pick up tonight, get himself into a really good championship position with the final 2 weeks upcoming, but he is in a good position realistically for the time being. Could be far worse for him, and he's going to be right in the fight once again, getting more points than Bert Ten Kart at the moment. That'll please him, and of course with Andy Schell not being here and only picking up points that will be from his drop round, meaning that means that Danny Weir's going to be, if not in the championship, at least right up there and close to it, and in a really good position to try and push for into the final 2 weeks.
Here's one for you, Dara. If I tell you that most of the pit stops are around 50 seconds, what would you guess is the longest pit stop that we've had so far today?
As in planned pit stop, or just any pit stop at all?
Well, that's the question for you. That's the question for you.
I'm going to go with 6 minutes.
Oh, not a bad guess, you know. Robin Aston, sorry for him, spent 7 minutes and 11 seconds in the pit lane. So
I nearly
that's
said 7.
Oh, well, there you go. You missed out on your opportunity. There was no prizes for that one, unfortunately, but still, yeah, disastrous at the start. 36 places lost for Mr. Aston, who started right up there. Was he even in the top 4, or was he not involved in there? It was the two Robins, of course, on the front row of the grid. So yeah, from fame to shame, I think, there for the Porsche 125, currently in P27 in class 38 on the road, and which is actually not so bad considering he spent 7 minutes in the pit box, in the pit lane, in the pit box, actually, both.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Let's just see how this pans out. I mean, a few of the drivers will have been absolutely screwed over with the amount of pit lane time that they've had to be sitting with, for instance, that haven't necessarily been their fault. But what can you do in certain situations? You've kind of made your bed, you've got to lie in it somewhat. Yeah, sadly for Robin Aston, one of those drivers. 7 minutes is a very long time. You genuinely probably could get yourself a snack and make yourself a cup of tea and come back to the sim rig and maybe have a nice little sip. I mean, actually thinking about it, Imola isn't a place where you've really got a long enough straight to, you know, lean over, grab your mug and have a bit of tea. But hey, that's a very British problem to have.
Yeah, sadly for Danny Weir, it's not been quite the turnover that we would have hoped. He's come out in P6. He had a 20-second stationary stop, which compared to his rivals isn't so bad actually. They're all about at the same point. Andre Muntien, however, has been in the pit lane, but Jan Nage, I think it'll be quite a tight cutover. 18 seconds separating those two drivers at the moment. So Andre Muntien could really surpass that gap when Jan comes in to pit. So sadly for Danny, back outside the top 5. Sander Tabbers in P4, Bert Ten Kart in P5. P5 next to each other on the circuit, but with 4 seconds between them. And I was going to make a point there, Dara, about the pit stops. We went from fame to shame as well. The highs of Daytona not serving any, this is my team I'm talking about, not serving any issue throughout the race, you know, having a pretty flawless session. And then we did the conspit around Monza last weekend, and we spent arguably more time in the pit lane than we did out of it. I think we've had like 5 or 6 15-minute mandatory repair sessions to do, which was an absolute disaster. Sadly, none of them really our fault, just the nature of those slightly quicker endurance races. I say it's quick, it was still 6 hours, but yeah, I know exactly how it feels to sit there. You press the engine off button and there you go, make yourself a cuppa or go for a quick wee while you've got time, while you've got some time.
Yeah, and then you remeasure into the race and you look at some of the gaps and you think, oh my goodness me, how am I meant to gain 15 laps, you know, or even 10 laps on cars around me?
It was 31.
It's just never going to happen.
Yeah,
31.
31.
Yeah, good
31.
luck. Good luck, lads.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't.
Out.
Yeah, we split up across 2 teams, and sadly the same thing happened to the other team as well. So it was a pretty disastrous outing for the 5 of us involved in that one. But you know, we had the highs of Daytona. You can't win them all. And I'd much rather, you know, if someone said to me, would you rather sit in the pit lane for an hour or would you rather win Daytona, then, you know, I'd take the rough with the smooth, put it that way. If one has to come to get the other, then I'll quite happily take that. And something tells me that some of these guys might be saying the same thing at the moment. It's gone good for some, not so good for others. Obviously, Robin Noel Brown having a pretty good time of it at the moment, but a few guys down there under blue flags who started pretty well at the start, of course. The bottom 4 at the moment have all dropped over 10 places, so yeah, those guys not having the best night of it so far. Approaching the final third of the session, sorry, the final quarter, not quite getting there. Just over 23 minutes left to go in this one. Not too many battles around the pit window. Bruno Silva is under a little bit of putting a little bit of pressure on Henry Coulin through Aqua Minerale, but so far so good, Dara, and we still have the top 6 in the field to go into the pit lane.
Yeah, we'll see when they decide to come to the pit lane. Oh my word, this is never going to work. Oh dear, there goes one. Around goes, that is Simon Wareham. Eggert tried to go through the middle. Eggert's gone into the pit lane as well. I have to say, I think that was a bit of an ill-advised move from Matthias Eggert here. What did he think he was going to achieve by sticking his nose in?
Oh, yeah, and I'm not sure if Simon... I mean, not to say Simon braked early, because there is no such thing as really braking early. You've got to adjust to everybody else, but you can see Newton just ever so slightly later. I'm not sure if that caught Eggert out slightly, but you're right, the gap was never there. It would have been so much easier, actually, for Eggert just to let those 2 go through and then try and scoop up the pieces on the run down toward turn 2, but these are the decisions that we make in a fraction of a second, and sadly, for Eggert on that occasion, he made the wrong one.
Yeah, not the advised move, it's fair to say. Yeah, I don't really know what he thought it was going to happen down there, sticking it down the middle of a corner where you have to be committed to make a move. And he just wasn't that committed, and he wasn't that alongside, and yeah, it was never going to work. And I think Simon Wareham's going to feel understandably aggrieved for that. Was a passenger and all of it. And he's into the pit lane now and a long way down. Sheesby's into the pit lane, making his pit stop from P5 in this race. We'll see where he comes out, but it now leaves the front 4 out on the racetrack, as Evan Main also comes in. So it is just the front 4 yet to pit. Competitively,
yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, of course, and I must say, yeah, shame for Mr. Simon, because he had a great little run from the back of the grid up into a pretty competitive position, but that's racing, sadly. Wrong place, wrong time. Bruno Silva, he's in the right place at the right time on the inside of Henry Coulin. Gets that place done into the Varianti outer chicane. Nice and easy, a nice place to get that move done. Difficult, really, for the car behind to launch an attack, although it looks like that McLaren does have just a little bit of extra speed coming out of that chicane. But I think, yes, Bruno, the Portuguese man, is going to have that one covered off into Ravazza 1 and Ravazza 2. Kostrick still with James Howarth all over the back of him for points, good enough for P8 at the moment. And as you rightly say, Dara, the top 4 still the men at yet to go into the pit lane. Noel Brown, Vandermeer, Ludbrook and Bostock, 3 of 4 Porsches. And Robin Noel Brown is just at the fastest sector in the final sector, so he still flying on what I can only imagine is pretty worn tyres at the moment. But of course, low fuel. The car will be nearly, the tank will be nearly empty at this point.
It will, but you know, the drivers will know the numbers. They won't be worried about missing the fuel numbers and running out of fuel. But it will mean that the cars are feeling a little bit lighter. They're in a better position to maybe improve their pace just a touch, and we'll see if they can use this to their advantage. I mean, the fact that like Noel Brown's been out in front and been able to save the fuel tank seemingly more than pretty much anybody else is so impressive, and shows you exactly why he's towards the front of the field. And the longer he goes, of course, the less time he's going to have to spend in the pit lane, because the less time he needs to, fill up the car, logically. So it's looking pretty good for Robin L. Brown. It's been a clinical display.
Yeah, that's always my preferred strategy. I know my teammate, Mr. Jones, sometimes likes to box early, get out the traffic, and then go through again. But I'm always thinking, well, you can save a lot of time not only with a lighter fuel, with a lighter car with less fuel. Also, yeah, you need to fill it less when you get to the pit stop. So I'm sure that will all be playing on Mr. Noel Brown's mind at the moment. He'll be confident, though, in his abilities, won't he? He's only been off the podium 3 times so far this season. 4 race wins to his name coming into the session tonight. 4 more podiums. And, considering we're seeing some dominance, I'm thinking, obviously, the likes of William Humphrey over there on a Monday night, and some of the drivers in those 4 classes, and it's not always been that dominant, but the same can be said for Andy Chell, right? He's only had 3 podiums so far this season, yet came into tonight leading the standings. So consistency, absolutely key for these drivers at the front. You don't have to win every single race to be in with a chance of winning the championship. Just have to be there or thereabouts, a few good results, and by the end of the season you really start to get a good idea about where you're going to end up. So good examples by Noel Brown and Mr. Chell. But of course, Danny Weir had such a crucial run from rounds 4 through rounds 9, where he really picked up the bulk of those championship points.
Yeah, and it's now shot him into real contention into the final few weeks of the season. Yeah, looking forward to seeing how the final 2 weeks end up occurring. It's going to be a really exciting way to end out the season, the first season of 2025, of course, to finish in ESR, and big prizes on the line for a few of these drivers. And I think they'd be, delighted to get a championship, but also delighted to even get a top 5. So even drivers who aren't necessarily going for the title are going to be wanting big points tonight.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having these 2 splits, of course. We've got so many drivers who've been racing with us for so long, over the past 2.5 years or so. And some of them have never had a race win. Some of them have had a podium, top 5 even. Whereas now, there's so much more opportunity for these guys to stay competitive, of course, across the 2 splits that we have tonight, which really, really is a good staple for not only the drivers, but also for the championship and ESR as a whole. As you rightly say, I'm looking for the moment when Jan Nage came into the pit lane, which inherited the lead back to Sander Tabbers. So the Dutchman takes the lead once again. 16 minutes to go now. He'll be optimistic of just staying clear of those 4 ahead of him: Howarth, Kostyuk, Janssen and Shisby, just to sort of secure what he has in the bag. He's got 6 seconds down to Jan Nage, who could soon be under pressure from Mark van Molken. So far, so good for the lead Evo driver.
Yeah, and he's just been fantastic ever since he took the lead off at the start. He's not really looked back, and the McLaren has been happy to sit with him, and he's been confident enough to keep himself far enough clear of Jan Nage to not really feel the pressure throughout this race. Still 60 minutes to go, of course. There's still a lot of racing still to occur, more than a quarter of the full hour that we started with, but 6 seconds ahead. He looked confident, he looked calm. You'd feel hard pressed to say he's going to get overtaken now. He's about to lap Robert Savage, I should say, which will be the 2nd time in this race as well. It's just looking pretty rosy for Sander Tabbers at the moment. I hope we're not paying him too much attention that something will go wrong in the final 15 minutes.
Good point. Let's get away from him before it does, because we all know that is exactly going to happen. We've got 2 Ferraris on the track, the only 2 Ferraris sharing the track at the moment. Quite a nice sight. It's Clyde Veyer on the back of Mark van Molken. These guys trying to get inside the top 10. A nice little haul of points for both of these drivers, and I'm sure they'll both be acutely aware of the fact that they've got a 10-second gap to overcome to try and catch up with James Howard. So this is really the last that these guys have on offer. The Maltese driver, Privateer, racing on his own in that Ferrari at the moment. Although, have you noticed there, Dara? It's got a Union Jack on the side of the car. But he did register, we promise he did register under the Malta flag. But instead, he's decided to put the old Union Jack on the side of his Ferrari, which is, hey, I can't complain.
Yeah, well, maybe he's an expat, who knows? But Clyde, well, I mean, if you can have both flags, why not, right? And also, just to have the Malta flag looks kind of cool on the broadcast anyway. So, credit to Clyde for signing up as a Maltese driver, even if he's going to have the British flag on the car. I mean, he's had a good season as well, decent enough, particularly for the Ferrari. Not been many Ferraris around, but definitely one of the more competitive ones in the 104. Looking to try and get past a sister Ferrari, Mark van Mulken, who's had his own up and downs today, and let's see if he can do it. Wide line from the Evo driver up in front, not going to help them out at all. But as they run through the final corner, Clyde's got a good exit. Let's see if it's good enough to have a go at turn 1.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I hope for his sake that he hasn't expatted to the UK, because trading the southern tip of Italy for this place isn't the best trade I've ever seen. But you're totally right about the flags, actually. Something that some of my family have commented on in the past is how it's good, you know, we don't have a massive cohort from the UK. Sorry, we do have a cohort, of course, from the UK, but we also have so many countries in and across both of our, well, I was going to say both of our splits, also both of our championships, coming from far and wide, you know, as far as South Africa, all the way to Canada, the US, eastern parts of Europe, and of course, Malta as well. So great to see most of the world, or at least most of the world that would survive on a server in Europe. Of course, we couldn't have anyone from Asia or Australia racing with us, because that wouldn't go down too well. Although we did have something actually which was quite funny. We got a complaint during the Conspit 6 hours from somebody driving in Australia with like a 400 ping, claiming that we drove into the side of him, when of course it was just one major piece of netcode. And you do wonder, if you're going to join a European server from so far away, it's kind of what you've got to expect, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhat. Same could be said if you're joining an American server from Australia.
Very true.
Or European
Even
server
Europe.
from Australia. It can be a little bit difficult. Well, exactly. I mean, you could be next door to some of these servers and they'll still disconnect you. So it's never really a guarantee, but it's never going to help you out if you're quite literally thousands of miles away trying to connect via the ether. But it's great that we see such a diverse grid in terms of the amount of nations that we have. I mean, I think at one point on a Monday night, I was looking at the grid and we had something like 8 nationalities in the top 8, something like that, which is always good to see. And it always means that the ESR is going far and wide, and those people are getting involved.
Yeah, totally right. Absolutely. I am curious though if iRacing are ever going to put some sort of cap on connections, because I feel like we see so many netcode issues every single week, really. It makes you wonder, are we ever going to get that cap? I mean, I don't know what would be a sufficient cap, but you'd think 300 ping is a little bit too much, especially when it comes to going side by side at high speeds. But hey, that's not for us to decide. That's for the iRacing developers to choose, and I'm not going to complain at the work that they do, because they do some brilliant work, bringing us great cars, very realistic circuits, laser scan circuits, of course, in some of these latest updates. And yeah, graphically and physically, it's such a great simulator. So you can't have it all. It can't be perfect, but that would be something that I think would be quite a good, or at least the option for it, right? Just to limit some of these things. I think that might help league organisers such as ourselves to try and mitigate some of those sort of pesky netcode issues when some drivers don't have the best connection. I think it's safe to be said.
Yeah, some drivers, sometimes it can't be helped. Sometimes it's just a case of some bad internet. But it can be really difficult. It really can be difficult for some drivers who have difficult connections, but they kind of have to deal with it. We have a couple of drivers that blink a lot, don't we? But you get them everywhere, and sometimes they don't even know it's happening. So they can't really do much about it in the moment, because for them everything's fine, and they're driving around and they get hit by someone. What they don't realise is that they've just been hit by somebody who thought they were driving into some clean air. So yeah, it's difficult really, but it is great that we have sim racing around. I remember I was talking to when I was talking to some of the Team Redline drivers last summer, and when they were saying that they were getting into sim racing was almost the replacement of the fact that they couldn't either afford karting or it was too late in their lives to really get into karting or into motorsport. And it really opens the door for so many people to get into, getting the feel of some of these cars, racing in a way that can be transferable into the real world, and you really can feel like you can drive these cars even if you can't visually. If you got into one with enough practice on the sim, you probably could give it a good go around a circuit. And it is great. And it is great that we have so many drivers on our racing. Of course, the biggest Daytona 24 this year to kick off the year. So many more drivers in an increasing amount on the servers and racing as well, because it means that there's more drivers to get involved in leagues like this.
Yeah, it really is great. I mean, I picked this up during lockdown, like I think a lot of us did, and a lot of these guys, of course, the 120 drivers, let's say, who we have registered in this championship. I would love to see some sort of graphic which tells us what kind of equipment they all use, because I know some guys toward the bottom of the Evo class might not have the best equipment, but the fact is, you can go toe-to-toe with someone if you've got some sort of skill. You can go toe-to-toe with pretty much anybody, and I know there's a couple of guys right up there toward the front of the elite class over on Split A who have some frankly outrageous bits of equipment, and I'm not sure if I hinted on this one or picked up on this one correctly, but I believe none other than Mr. Luke Lucchese may have genuine brake fluid inside his brake pedal, which is something that I've not heard anybody have in a race simulator, but I think it's there to replicate the feeling of one of their real-life racing cars. I might be lying. I don't think I am. Well, I know I'm not lying, but I think I might have understood that one correctly. And that's just crazy, isn't it? When some of these guys have got little plastic pedals, some of them just have a little pad, and then some of these guys have brake fluid in there.
Yeah, well, whatever floats your boat, really, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, whatever works for you, it works for you. I mean, different seating arrangements as well, lighting conditions. I often talk about this when we... well, it's good to talk about it when we have driver cams on the drivers, because you can really put two drivers in a battle next to each other. One of them is basically as if you're at the gates of heaven, and it's as bright as can be. And in other rooms, you oh my word, it's got Kostrick goes for
wow.
the spin.
Well styled, Scott. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, he's gone for a spin. But so you either get those bright rooms or the rooms where you're genuinely trying to find where the driver is, because it's so dark in there that it's like there's a ghost driving the simulator. So it really is a case of whatever drivers want to do. Scott Kostrick wouldn't have wanted to do this, but that'll make a nice profile picture.
Yeah, that'll definitely be getting photographed, I'm sure, at some point. I'm just going to watch that one last time, because it's so easy to do, of course, coming through that tricky, you sort of lose the weight of the car, and then, yeah, he's lost it in that first phase of the corner, actually. He didn't even straighten up before the second one. He'll be pretty annoyed that he's lost that position. Howard's been putting him under pressure for such a long time. There's Shisby looking to go around the outside of Klaas Janssen, who shuts the door and says, no, thank you. Keeps that position nicely, and he'll have to try once again. But yeah, Kostrick won't be best pleased that he's lost those positions after doing pretty well right toward the front. I think it was inside the top 8 just a minute ago. But at least he didn't completely spin the car, or even worse, hit the wall. So it's still going to be good enough for points inside the top 9 in class. Of course, 10th on the circuit overall. And it's Ludbrook who's been hounded by Fraser for this entire race so far. We saw Fraser actually attempt the undercut. Doesn't look like it's worked out, unless John's got him back. I have missed that overtake if it has happened. But yeah, we saw Fraser going in for the undercut, thinking that it might work, because he looked as though he had the pace over Ludbrook just as I think it was about halfway point in the race. But with just over 6 minutes to go, it's still a battle within half a second for the final place on the podium, final place inside the top 3 here.
Yeah, this is going to be a real tussle to the end of the race. Only a handful of laps left to run. Ludbrook and Fraser battling it out. They were battling it out a while ago. We said it could be just the battle for the podium because they were falling off the back of Jelmer van der Meer and Robin Noel Brown. That is how it's transpired. But there is still a chance for them to maybe make a move towards the end. Only Dean Sheesby, Mark Van Mulken, Andre Minty and Jarlsberg joining in Fraser and being a second or less than a second behind the car in front. Which means that this really is an important battle and one of the only battles on the racetrack, as we have only 5.5 minutes to go.
Yeah, it's really getting there now. This is when the drivers really start to think, well, I don't want to say panic. No one will be panicking, but you've got a feel for Ludbrook in this situation, really. I think Fraser I think I would rather be in Fraser's position, to be honest, at this point, putting pressure on him. I don't like driving in my mirrors. I don't like having to look if I'm getting lunged or not. I want to be the one doing the aggression. I'm sure we'll soon start seeing Fraser. Just there you go, he's filling the left mirror of Ludbrook already. Not just tucking him behind. He wants to make sure that the 114 knows that he's there, and it's kind of all on John now to drop the ball and allow that Mercedes to go through. Of course, if he does hang on, which I'm sure he will, it will have been a pretty stressful final 5 minutes for the Porsche driver. If Fraser can't get him in the end, then so be it. He didn't quite have the pace, but my personal preference would be the one doing the hunting, I think, Dara.
Yeah, you don't really want to be looking behind you at this stage of the race thinking, I just hope I get to the end and hope the checkered flag flies, because you want to be moving forward. Andre Muntian looking to move forward through Toza, and we'll get a good enough exit, I think, to get Danny Weir up towards Piratella. Weir will have a better drive, though, and he'll have the outside line into what is a tricky left-hander. And is he far enough ahead to claim the racing line? Not quite, but he has a nice run around the outside. Well, goes wide off the circuit. Oh, he had to. But he will stay ahead of Andre Muntian, and there is no slowdown at the moment.
Yeah, we've got some support for Andre in the chat, so we'll ride on board with this for a moment as we enter the final 4 minutes. Jan Osberg pretty close in behind Pete Paeva as well to get inside the top 16. But this is a battle, if I switch over here, for the final place on the Evo class podium. Both of these drivers need it so much. Danny Weir in his fight to try and win the championship. Andrea Muntian in with a chance to try and get inside the top 3. Points crucial for both of these drivers, with of course only 2 races to go. Mugello and Bathurst following this one. 2 30-minute race weekends, of course. The last chance that these drivers have to score double points from converting just one result. So it really is now or never to bring home close to maximum points for some of these guys. Still plenty of opportunity for that, but I think it's very interesting to see these guys are so competitive all season long. Danny wanting to win the title, Andrea fancying himself to get his hands on a trophy, and it comes down to this inside the final 3 minutes. This is going to continue right down to the wire.
Yeah, with only 2 or 3 laps for them to finish this battle between themselves. Danny Weir will keep Andre behind for the time being and won't have the pressure that he felt last lap at Tosa, unless he has an absolutely awful line through turn 7 this time around, which he won't. Gets out of the corner nicely. Oh, actually he doesn't. Bit of a slide, snap. And yeah. Andre may have a chance up towards turn number 8 or 9 even at Piratella. This little kink is officially turn number 8, but nothing that he can do into the left-hand, and Danny Weir stays ahead for the time being.
Yeah, nearly into the final 2 minutes. It'll be Noel Brown's turn to take that white flag any minute now. Speaking of which, actually, let's just watch on with this, see how severe that was. Noel Brown is taking a little trip over the grass. Is that the blue flag potentially on the inside, putting him off? Has he clipped, just carried too much entry? Yes, he has. Oh, the race. Oh, that's a big impact for the race leader. He's now, look at this, Dara. He's got pressure from Jarmo van der Meer right behind him. This is for the lead of the entire field, and this is not the kind of pressure that Noel Brown needed to put on himself. Got caught out slightly by that blue flag passing him through the second chicane, and now all of a sudden he's got risk of Jarmo van der Meer coming along and stealing what looked to be a pretty comfortable race. There's only going to be, I think, 1 more lap to go when they cross the line here. Yes, there will be. This is the penultimate lap, and Jarmo is going to have to surely put a move on him. Even if it's a little bit risky, you've got to send it now, surely.
Yeah, you'd think so. They're going to come to the white flag this time round, and then it'll just be the 1 lap to the end of the race. Jarmo van der Meer would have wanted to have a go down towards turn number 1. Arguably the best overtaking opportunity on the racetrack, but he's just not going to be close enough to make any kind of move at all. Andre Muntian is looking for a move still on Danny Weir. They're going to have pretty much 2 laps to fight this one out as they continue around towards Tosa once again. It's really an end to the race I don't think we would have necessarily expected.
No, we're going to keep cutting back and forth between them. They cross over now on what will be the final lap of the race with just 47 seconds left in this one. A little bit of a gap has opened up, so it could be pressure off for the time for Robin Noel Brown, but of course you don't know how the downforce of that Porsche has been affected by that. What was a pretty substantial whack into the barrier, actually. I didn't think it was going to be so bad. I thought he might have just maybe gone straight on here, maybe over the gravel trap, but instead went fully off to the left. A little bit of a wobble by Jarmo, pushing a little bit aggressively, and this could be critical. No, I was going to say if that Audi rejoins in front of these guys, it could have been harder for Yarma to get through. It looks as though Noah Brown is going to survive this one. I'll keep my eyes on the timing tower. Ludbrook still surviving against Fraser. I spoke just a fraction too soon. Down the inside goes the Mercedes, forcing the Porsche out wide onto those little marbles, and that is Liam Fraser. We saw it coming earlier on. We thought it might have happened, and on the final lap, he's made it stick here. The Mercedes of Liam Fraser onto the podium. Has Ludbrook got another response in him in the final couple of corners?
Getting in the mirror, scaring him off the racing line, doing exactly what he needs to do to try and make that move, and he's done it absolutely fantastically. Fraser up to P3 as Muntian and Danny Weir will still fight down in towards turn number 1. Is there any move at all for Andre? I don't think there will be. He will have to stick in behind Danny Weir, but that'll allow Noel Brown and Jelmer van der Meer to take the checker flag in just a second as we have a quick look at Liam Fraser's move again. Yeah,
it wasn't, as I said there, he wasn't really thinking about it, and then he said, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go for this, and Ludbrook didn't really have a choice but to let him through. Robin O'Brown has withstood that pressure after that earlier mistake. Takes the line ahead of Jelmer van der Meer. Liam Fraser, great try for him. Ludbrook trying a little bit too hard there, running out into the gravel. James Bostock inside the top 5. It's going to be Sander Tabbers. He's not quite at the final corner yet. These two just making their way down into Aqua Minerale now for the final time. A little bit of a tighter line to put off that NSX in behind by Danny Weir. Exits up the hill now. It's through turn 12 and 13 we go. Sander Tabbers is about to ride on board through the final corner. No move giving there for the NSX. Here he is then, the Dutchman, number 2, takes the checkered flag in the Evo class. He'll finish ahead of Jan Nage, and we'll jump back to the final place on the podium. But between these two, last opportunity now for Andre Muntian into Ravazza. Is he going to be close enough to make a send? No, he's not. He's going to stay where he is. And I think, Dara, that's going to be it.
Yeah, Danny Weir through the final corner. Just needs to get the power down, and he will get the podium. Oh, a little bit tricky, though, on the exit. Will just about hold on in the Porsche. And all the pressure from the number 7 is not going to work out. Danny Weir in the 55 keeps himself up in the podium spots. And I think Doc Hudson's going to be very pleased with that one.
Yeah, what a race finish that was by all of these drivers involved. I'm sure so many of them will be thoroughly satisfied with that session's racing. Wesley Van Ren was next across the line. He finished inside the top 5, but we'll run down the order. Wow, that was crazy. Yarma and Robin and Fraser and Ludbrook, and then, of course, Danny and Andrea there. Great support for all those guys, as always, in the chat. But yeah, Dara, what a way to round off the final 1-hour session of the season. That sets us up nicely, I think, for mixed conditions, which, let's not forget, that could throw a spanner in the works. And then we need to say no more about the potential spanner when they go up and down the hill around Bathurst.
Yeah, that's going to be quite something to behold, I think, in well, not in a million years, that's for sure. Going to be exciting, important races, of course. This is going to be critical for championship aspirations as we go into the final 2 weeks. However, we still do have those final 2 weeks, and points still up for grabs in, as we've said, difficult races.
So first then, the run through the order of our 30 drivers inside the Premier class. Bear with me. It's going to take me a few minutes. Robin O'Brown does, in the end, convert that win. It was looking so comfortable for 98% of that race. And then in the final 2 laps, he made one mistake going through turn 3 into the wall, turn 5 into the wall before turn 6, which meant it was a little bit of a squeaky time to see out Jelmer van der Meer by just 0.6 of a second. Liam Fraser made a great lunge into Tosa on the final lap to get past John Ludbrook to take the final place on the podium, and he finished ahead of his teammate James Bostock. So that's 2. If you want to count Robin, that's 3 of the GP2 cars inside the top 5. Outside of those, it was Klaas Janssen and Dean Sheesby inside the top 7. James Howarth and Scott Kostrick inside the top 9, with Mark Van Mulken rounding out the top 10. Claude Veer, Piet Paeva, Jan Osberg, Henry Coolen and Evan Main will finish inside the top 15. Bruno Silva, Rob Gregg, Rob Mackay getting himself up nicely into the top 18. Austin Grave and Alex Coenrath will be the last drivers to score points. Sadly for Sarika Desler, I think that would have been enough, just about on the cusp, for the Turkishman to score points. But sadly, he's finished outside of the top 20. The rest of the drivers in the order won't have scored points, but actually none of them finished the race at all. Martin Cox, Simon Ware, Matthias Eggert, Ryan Blackie, Robin Aston, the top 26. Roald Turfkruer, Anthony Flamel, Brandon Smith, and Adam Baker there out within the first 5 laps of the session.
Yeah, and that rounds off our Premier list. It's a little bit shorter for the Evos. It's only the 11 drivers, with Sander Tabbers winning out. Fantastic evening for the Dutchman, who was able to take the lead at turn 1 off of Jan Noj and not look back. The Swedish driver did in fact finish in P2 and a long way clear of that battle for P3 between Danny Weir and Andre Muntean. Wesley Van Rijn wasn't a million miles away either, just about 4 seconds back from the battle, but he will finish in 5th. His countryman Bert Ten Kart were finished in 6th, ahead of Gareth Newton, James Pallow, Daniel Poole and Robert Sandwich in the top 10. Lewis Plath was in 11th, 2 laps down, but more than close enough to pick up the points for that, and he will be, even though last, still picking up a decent points haul tonight.
Yeah, pretty good for all those guys, of course, in that smaller division. Always opportunities on. All you have to do is kind of try and keep yourself in the race, and you can score pretty good points. I must say, Dara, I don't think we've had too many... I don't think we've had too many occasions, actually, in ESR history where we've had drivers finishing outside the points. More often than not, even if you have a bad race, you cross the line, you're still going to score points. But now, just shows the competition, I was going to say the competitiveness, that's improved over the last couple of months, where now we have 30 drivers, the full division showing up, more or less the full division, showing up for a session, and, 2/3 of them, one-third of them not scoring points, which is pretty crazy, actually. Normally we see that in real racing quite often, but yeah, particularly in ESR, not something that we see too often.
It's not, no, sorry, I didn't forget to unmute my microphone there, I promise. It's not something we see too often, but it's always nice when it can occur sometimes. But I think I am looking forward to seeing how the championship's going to end. Only a couple more weeks to go, but yeah, still a lot to be won. It's looking like it's going to be great.
Absolutely right. So let's begin the interviews as always. We have quite a few drivers wishing to speak with us, of course, but we'll try to prioritise our race winners and our podium sitters. So I believe, Dara, are we bringing in Mr. Noel Brown into the booth first?
We are going to indeed. Robin Noel Brown, of course, winner in that Premier class, just about in the end. Robin, welcome in. Can you hear us?
Hi, Dara. Yeah, I can hear you guys. How you doing?
Good stuff, Robin. Well, welcome back. I was thinking about what we were going to talk about if you turned up for an interview, but I think the best place to start is your little excursion there toward the end of the race, putting a little bit of additional pressure. Well, in fact, there was no pressure, let's be right. But in the end there, Yarma took you all the way to the line. So talk us through that moment, particularly. What went wrong? Was the car feeling a little bit loose? Was it something to do with the car that was on the inside? And how did you feel when you realised that you were all of a sudden under pressure for a race victory that looked in the bag for most of that session?
Yeah, I think I just got put off a little bit on there, and I was in a slightly different place on the track to turn in from the lapped cars that I was going past, and I just caught the first speed bump on that curve, and if you catch it in just the wrong way, it just fires you off the track. So yeah, I was a bit nervous. I span it round and I looked down the track and I could see we're coming, and I was thinking I'll just get it on the track as quickly as possible. Fortunately, didn't have any damage either. So, but yeah, it was a bit closer than I was anticipating at the end of that race.
But again, Robin, well, congratulations firstly. Secondly, of course, Monday you won the race in the GT4s. Me and you often talk about how transferable the skills are. For you, how transferable can you find the GT3 racing to the GT4s that we have on a Monday night?
Definitely picking lines and things around the circuits, using the GT4s they take the curbs a bit better than the GT3s, so you can explore how far you can get across the curbs before you get off tracks and things. So yeah, it's pretty useful, and the Porsche in the GT4s drives in a sort of similar way. You can drive it on the nose like you can the Porsche in the GT3, so it's good practice. It's nice to have a bit more aero in the GT3s though for the faster corners.
Yeah, we were talking about that actually as well before the session, how, you know, GT4's somewhat comparable to these GT3s. I think the TCR is a little bit of too much of a bigger margin to really be all that transferable. But yeah, around a circuit like this sets you up nicely for the final doubleheader of the season. Talk us through that. How are you feeling? Obviously, Mugello next week in the mixed conditions. I don't recall exactly what the sort of setup is for that one, but there's that, and then of course Bathurst, which is going to be one hell of a season finale. But I think by that point, Robin, you might be in quite a comfortable position with no Eddie on the circuit tonight.
Yeah, it's a shame Eddie hasn't been able to join the last couple of weeks, really. But Liam's getting some great results and keeping toe with me, keeping me honest. So I need to watch out for him. He's rapid at the moment. But yeah, the doubleheader at Mugello, I haven't looked at the conditions either, Joe, to be honest. But I know that I don't know if it's wet to dry or dry to wet. But I've only ever raced Mugello in the sim in officials just after they released the rain. So I've only ever raced there in the wet. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's not my favourite circuit, but I don't mind it. It is quite tricky in the wet. There's some really vicious curves there.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, especially the 3D curves that they've put into the game. That'll definitely be one to watch out for. But yeah, good stuff, Robin. All in all, another successful night. Can't ask for more. Double points and whatnot. So glad that you were able to join us. And before we let you go, if there's anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to, you can go ahead and do that now.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Well, obviously the whole GP2 teams. We had a really good showing tonight in B Split. I think everybody was there tonight in their Porsches except for Huss in the NSX. So yeah, but a shout out to them and all the support and help and tips, etc. that we share and setups and things like that. So yeah, really appreciate all the team. I also want to give a shout out to my mum and dad and my brother who tune into your stream most weeks to watch me race in the GT4s and the GT3s. So thank you guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching, and they really enjoy it as well. Joe, Dara, they love your commentary. They think it's great.
Brilliant. That's always nice to hear. So yes, thank you to the Noel Brown family, and yeah, thanks to you, Robin, for stopping by again. I'm sure we'll speak to you once again before the end of the season.
Cheers, guys. Thanks. Take care.
Thanks, man. See you soon.
Robin L. Brown there. Sounds like he's got a great family. I don't know why I'm saying that immediately, but you know, Joe, I think, you know, they sound great.
I know. Brilliant.
He wasn't the only one tonight, the Robin L. Brown. He was in the Premier class, in the Evo class. Sander Tabbers, who was able to get the win. And Sander joins us now. Can you hear us, Sander?
Yes.
Welcome in then, sir. Congratulations. Good win for you in the end. You, of course, sort of withstood that pressure from Jan early in the race, and then maybe a little bit questionable around the pit stops, maybe unsure where you were going to come out, but in the end, you had a nice gap, over 7 seconds in the end, to the nearest championship rival. So talk us through that one. How did that feel, arriving back on sort of a more traditional European circuit, of course, and sets you up nicely, I think, for the final run-in for the final couple of races of the season?
Yes, circuit with a little bit more experience than other ones, like Virginia or Long Beach. I've never driven before. But yeah, the first 15 minutes was just finding pace, and it's easy if you have some other class cars between P1 and P2. Then you can create a bigger gap. And just after the pit stop, the same gap, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
But for you, Sander, I mean, looking forward, I mean, you've had a great couple of weeks now, really picking up some pace, picking up some really big points. Do you feel like you can maybe get yourself ever closer, maybe towards that top 5, maybe even top 3 region of the championship going to the final couple of weeks? Because, of course, you come into this race P6. I know you're about 100 points, well, actually less than that, about 85 points off the championship lead. But you're going to be gaining some good points here tonight. Do you feel like you can maybe try and push on for a top 5, top 4 even?
I hope so. Even with this race, with Andy and Ryan missing, I think I put some good points in the back. But yeah, I missed the think like 3 or 4 races in the beginning. It's just it's hard to come back.
Yeah, it can be really tricky, can't it, when you're out of the order, but you've done such a good job. And I think while it's so tight at the front of the championship, it's it's good when you can sort of capitalise on. For example, Andy Chell, not with us tonight, the championship leader. Ryan Abbott's another one, not with us as well. So, yeah, the 4 of you doing pretty well toward the front. And of course, got some good support, I believe, in chat as well, Sander. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, has David perhaps pressured you into doing an interview? Because he was asking you to do one last week. It never came. And now this week, you're with us. So good to see the support for you in the chat as well.
I can't do it without him. He's a great teammate from Michael Solheim, 2 months back. I'm only 2 months on PC now. First I was driving ACV.
Interesting. Actually, yeah, very interesting. Yeah, you're doing very well then.
I think that's also the experience of Imola. I've driven it before, and it's a little bit easier to find the pace.
Yeah, good stuff, Sander, as well. If you would like to give anybody a shout out, then I will give you a chance to do that now. And if not, then yeah, we'll let you go and we'll bring in one more driver to speak to.
Yeah, the biggest shout out to David in the chat and Team STL. That's it.
Good stuff, mate. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. You're welcome back anytime. And good luck in your little push toward the end of the season to try and, I don't know, get yourself top 5, top 3. Let's see where you end up. But thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you again shortly.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Thank you.
Sander Tabbers there. Great to speak to him after his win tonight, and that enables us to speak to one more driver, Joe, and I think we'll be able to have a chat with Liam Fraser after his good result. Podium in the end in the Premier Class. Liam joins us now. Can you hear us, Liam?
I can.
Good stuff, Liam. Well, welcome back into the booth. Talk us through that one then, because we watched you making that move, or should I say we watched you setting up that move for quite some time on Mr. LeBrook toward the end of that session. Then you finally got it done through into Tosa. 5 places gained overall. Is that the result that you were expecting, or has that podium maybe come out of nowhere a little bit?
Absolutely not. No. Didn't really even improve on my fastest lap in the qualifying that I'd done in practice. So dropping the fuel out didn't really help me. I was going to try and pit early, but I pit relatively early in the end. I was watching the gap. I come out behind it, which shocked me. Not shocked, I wouldn't say shocked, but surprised me actually. But when I went over the line with 8 litres of fuel in the car, I think that's where some of the time went. But yeah, I was up behind. It wasn't really, I wouldn't say I was being held up. I had 0.1 pace advantage, if anything. And just stuck to him. I was hoping he was going to get himself out of the way, to be honest, but he knew what to do into turn 1. Didn't give me what he gave me what I wanted on the inside. It turns out that's not what I wanted. And then I ended up making a couple of mistakes. Didn't think I was going to get back to him, to be honest. And then I was driving really well, right back up to the back of him, and he tended not to cover the inside at the hairpin. So I thought that was my chance, because I couldn't get out the final chicane very well, to be honest. So I thought that was my chance, so I jumped on it.
Yeah,
I had half a go at that halfway in the race. Bit of a half-hearted move, and I just made sure it was a full-hearted one this time.
Yeah, I was going to say, you really made your intention clear. He wasn't really covering the inside at all, and then just dipped out from behind him and got the move done. So good stuff, and pretty competitive. Always good to see that Mercedes doing pretty well. The only Mercedes in the field tonight, shall I say. So doing that manufacturer proud at the moment. How do you feel coming into the final 2 rounds and the championship? Absolutely flying toward the end already. Mugello, which is wet to dry next week, and then of course Bathurst, which is not sure how much experience you have around there, but such a tricky place to go when the pressure mounts right at the end of a championship.
Yeah, I'm devastated. I'm going to be missing for Bathurst, I'm afraid. We are watching Joseph in the Technicolor Dream Cup.
Wow.
So I'll not sing it. I know I've got a reputation for singing, but I'll not sing it. But not looking forward to the wet. I don't seem to do too well in the wet either, so I just do my best, try and keep it on, and have some fun. Get
Good
very
stuff,
calm
mate.
tonight, so that's the plan.
Yeah, that's exactly what you've got to do. Well, good stuff, mate. So I'll let you give a shout out, of course, to the team and anybody else, and then we'll start to wrap up for the session for the evening.
Yeah, shout out to you guys this time. A great stream. I haven't watched this one, but I'll be watching it in a second. And everybody who puts the lead together. Of course, the Moonshiner boys. Tony from Working GT Jimbo.
I was waiting for that one, mate. Happy days, the trio. The trio coming back out the box once again. Good stuff, mate. Well, awesome. Good to speak to you, and hopefully we'll catch you once again before the end of the championship.
Cheers.
All right, man, Liam. Have a good night.
Liam Fraser then. Good result for him, P3 in the end in the Premier class. And although he's going to be off, I think he's going to be singing, but although he's going to be off singing next week, a good way to maybe, depending on where he's a couple of weeks, end the season. We'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
very good point, Dara. That was one of the best, I think. We say this quite often, but yeah, these guys, it's a shame that the season has to come to an end, because I feel like we iron out a lot of those sort of new driver, new championship kind of problems. It takes about a month to get through that period, and then ever since sort of Sebring territory, it's been pretty clean, pretty good, and also very entertaining. And it's a shame, as we say, we've only got 2 weeks to go in this championship, but congratulations to our two winners. And of course, it's good to speak to both of them. We don't always get an opportunity for that. But yeah, before we close out, Dara, I'll give you a chance to maybe just summarise anything, if you'd like to, with the run-in to the final 2 weeks, and then we'll give out some news, and we'll be done for the night.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Mugello next week. Going to be a really exciting race. Fantastic circuit to go racing at. 2 30-minute races as well. A reverse grid to contend with. It's going to be really important for drivers to be there right from the word go. Evo class is going to be tight as well. Cannot wait.
Good stuff, mate. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to that one. Well, you can catch myself and Dara, as always, on a Monday evening and a Thursday evening. We've got 3 left to go on a Monday, 2 left to go tonight before we look forward to next season's adventure, I guess you could say. We've got some information coming on that very shortly, so keep your eyes peeled on the socials and on the server for information for GT3 Season 8. You can scan the QR code on screen now to join us at Evolution Sim Racing, nearly at 800 members, which is a great total to be on. But for now, I hope you've all enjoyed. Thanks to everyone for staying back until the end, as always. And myself and Dara will catch you once the weekend is done on Monday night for the 8th round of the GT4 TCR Championship around Mugello. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice weekend.